folk singer-songwriter Jesse Matus is probably best known as 1/3 of the Crooked Brothers. And over the past decade or so, the Crooked Brothers have done non-stop touring all over the world. They've released 3 great albums and have just generally been a force to be reckoned with in the local and Canadian roots folk kind of scene. Jesse, however, is someone who I've known for most of my life at this point. We first started a band together about 23 years ago when we were in grade 7. And ever since then, it's been so cool to watch his success. First as a solo artist, and then with the Crooked Brothers, and now back again, his first professionally produced solo album called Tamarock, which is coming out this Friday. First and foremost, the album is fantastic. I think that as someone who's known Jesse as long as I have, and have heard so much of his music over the years, I think that Tamarock really is the definitive Jesse Matus album. It takes all of the best things from his sound, from his earliest solo projects, to his work with the Crooked Brothers and beyond, and really just draws all of that together into a really cohesive whole. And I couldn't be happier to see him releasing this because I think it's going to be really successful. I got the chance to talk to Jesse, who no longer lives in Winnipeg, when he was in town preparing for the release show. It's a really great episode, really fun conversation with a guy, like I said, I've known since I was 12. And we talk about the album, we talk about his inspiration from nature, we talk about all kinds of things, really. Jesse's one of those guys who is always welcome in the podcast whenever he's in town or whenever he's available, and I'm glad we got the chance to connect before the album release show. So listen for Tamarock. It's really, really good. It's absolutely going to be on my top of the year local albums list, even though I don't know if he counts as local anymore. But his heart is in Winnipeg, and his soul is in Winnipeg, and I think that comes through both on the album and on the podcast interview. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Park Theatre. Please visit myparktheatre.com to check out all the great shows they have coming up.
Thank you to everyone who supports my dad's show. If you'd like to support Witchpolice Radio, go to patreon.com/witchpolice today.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Well, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am in a car with one of the... I was going to say you were one of the first guests on the show. I don't think you were, but you were like spiritually one of the first guests on the show in the sense that everyone who started the podcast in 2012 was people you had played music with before. I mean, you know, the first band I was ever in, I think we talked about this last time you were on the show, was with you on bass, and I was on guitar when we were 12.
Yep.
So you were kind of, you've always been a part of Witchpolice despite not being a part of Witchpolice, if that makes sense. I think if you had been kind of more in the city, you probably would have done it with us anyway.
Yep.
So, Jesse Matus, if I didn't get to that part yet, best known perhaps as 1/3 of the Crooked Brothers, now back in Winnipeg to release his first solo album. I guess not first, but first.
First, but first.
Because you've done a lot of records kind of DIY over the years prior to the Crooked Brothers.
Just making music and putting things, burning CDs.
Yes.
Dubbing tapes of music.
But this is coming on vinyl. This is your first pro solo release.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference. Is it's on record. It's on a vinyl record.
So it's legit.
Feels like a legit album.
Yeah, totally. And so you're releasing that this weekend at the West End Cultural Center.
That's correct.
Cool.
Friday
night. Who's opening for that show?
Leaf Rapids.
Okay, right on.
Carrie and Devin Latimer.
Right.
And they are amazing. That's half of Nathan.
Right.
For people who know that band. Some of the best songwriting I've ever heard.
Yeah, for sure.
And Hannah Godfrey.
Okay.
Also goes by Hannah G. Is going to be reading some stories. She's a great story writer and teller, and she does a podcast and a radio show called Monkey Sparrow.
Cool.
And also runs Ace Art.
Oh, right on. Okay, that's cool. So it's pretty. It's a little bit diverse, but not too straying from what you do.
Right.
As a singer-songwriter, folk roots storytelling kind of vibe.
That's kind of how I would describe my album. It's diverse, but not straying too much from what I do.
Right, which is what you want, I guess.
Yes.
You want to have the typical Jesse Matus sound, whatever people have kind of determined that to be over time, and then get venture out a little bit, and then but stick with that, right?
So that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Whatever the weather has told me is going on.
Right. And the album Tamarock was you crowdfunded this, right?
Yes, I did a crowdfunding for pre-orders and help.
And was that successful? Did you able to reach the amount you wanted?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was amazing. It's always terrifying. I feel like it's the same thing with the show on Friday. The support of a community seems to come in often at the last minute.
Yeah.
And
right when you need it to, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But until then, it's just terrifying. It's like, wow, I just spent $25,000 or whatever on
Yeah,
this thing.
yeah.
And hopefully people buy it or support it or whatever in any way.
Hopefully it's not just a
sharing
bomb and
it
everyone
around.
hates
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah. So how long in advance was it? Was it already recorded when you started the crowdfunding? Or
Yeah.
It's okay. So
But it wasn't printed, so part of that helped to fund that and helped to pay off the.
what you owed on making
exactly.
it. Yeah, cool. And where did you record it?
I recorded it at Private Ear.
Okay. So it was in here. It was in
It was in
Nelson.
Winnipeg. Recorded over the course of a week, and most of the tracks were recorded over the course of 3 days, just live off the floor.
Right on.
With the band, and then a few that I did solo, and ended up doing a few more songs with some overdubs.
Cool.
Mostly live off the floor.
Cool. Well, I think the reason it's kind of a big deal that you're playing the show this weekend is because you haven't been in Winnipeg for a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been for visits, but you haven't been a Winnipegger for how long now?
I guess a year.
Right. So
Yeah.
people haven't seen you, and the
haven't
Cricket
been
Brothers
around.
have been on hiatus, right? So
Yeah.
So there's been nothing except for just like internet posts and stuff that's saying you're working on an album and crowdfunding, and
Yeah, exactly.
and now you're here.
Now I'm here. I'm here in the flesh. Yeah, the new baby is certainly taking some of the time.
Yeah,
from
I bet,
that,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
my not being as present in the music scene, but it's worth it for that.
But you've had the record kind of bubbling under the surface for a while, though. So I mean, that is sort
Yeah.
of building up to this, right? Does once the album comes out, I mean, once the release show's over and everything like that, and you go back home, what's the plan next with that? Are you planning on doing more shows or touring in support of it, or is this sort of just like, boom, here's the record, and then take time to work on other stuff?
I'm gonna play shows. I do think that that's the best way to
Usually,
play
yeah.
music is just get out and play it for people. Ontario, there'll be a few shows. I already have 3 booked for start of December, and then I'm gonna book some more shows in January and February. One nice thing about living down there is that I don't have to tour. Like,
Because you can drive.
yeah, you can do just a weekend of shows and then drive back home,
Right.
which is totally different than Winnipeg, where you can play in Winnipeg and then you have to drive.
You have to go 8 hours
Yeah.
in any direction. Yeah.
And you should probably go for at least a week or 2
Right.
to make it worthwhile.
Right, and that's a struggle a lot of bands have too. I mean, especially you kind of have the benefit of having been in the Crooked Brothers and done a ton of touring with that band and put out 3 records, so you have sort of a name recognition at this point, right? I mean, that's got to help as well, or are people not connecting Jesse Matus to the Crooked Brothers?
I think both. I think that the vast majority, like in Winnipeg, I think people do.
Yeah, I think so too. I think
But
even when like Matt Foster plays shows, people are like, "Oh, this is the guy from the Crooked Brothers,"
Yeah.
and that same audience sort of follows him, right? But yeah,
But I don't know. I guess I actually don't know because I haven't been playing too many shows.
Right.
So I don't know if that audience is going to follow, or if, if all the members of the Crooked Brothers are considered members of the Crooked Brothers, or what. Public perception is something.
well, I think it depends on how you market it too, right? If you start telling everyone, "Oh yeah, Jesse from the Crooked Brothers is playing a show here," you might.
Then in theory, people would understand.
One would hope, yeah. But do you think? I mean, I've heard the album; it's really good. Do you think that people who liked your work with the Crooked Brothers are going to also like this? Do you think it's similar enough in tone and sound that it's going to appeal to that audience? Because I mean, there's some different stuff you're doing.
Yeah,
on the
I
record.
think so. I think that there are enough similarities in the sound tonally, and especially in the production of it. I think that kind of is one of the big ties.
In what way?
The actual tonality of instruments and the sounds, that I feel like that's something that Matt Darwin and I always really we kind of shared this sense of what we like in the sound,
and that's
in
carried
the sound
on
of an instrument, and I think that just kind of naturally carries on because we all kind of shared pretty similar tastes, and like we like things to sound a little dirtier or deeper, or and actually take the time to get those sounds in the studio.
Well, and that's been your experience in the studio over the past 3 records you've worked on too, right? So I mean, it makes sense that that's going to come through as well. One thing that I like about the record, there's a lot of things I like about the record, but I like that there's a few songs where you kind of go full on Crazy Horse. With, like there's the folk songs, which I mean, everyone who's heard you before knows you're good at writing folk songs. You have very good storytelling, lyrics. You get into characters and stuff like that, but folk is folk. But then there's a couple ones where you amp it up a bit, and it's kind of like, I have the impression that these could go extended jams if you wanted to on some of these. If you were live,
tomorrow and the next day we're doing some rehearsals for the show, and I think that's where it's gonna go. And on the recording it kind of did, but one difference on the recording is that we didn't have Damon playing guitar. He's going to play guitar on Friday. So
that's going to be even more.
So there'll be more guitar. Yeah.
Cool. And is that the actual influence for those two? Is that like, are you just Neil Young seeping in there from the Winnipeg connection, or?
I guess so. Like, I don't think it was a conscious thing. I mean, I've listened to that a ton, and I love it.
Part of your whole life, right? Yeah.
And I do think that those songs, like the writing of those songs, was influenced by the kind of like they're very Manitoban environments, or like Canadian Shield and rhythmically and whatnot. I think that maybe they just came from the same source as a lot of his. It
makes sense, right? Because he grew up in Ontario, spent high school time in Winnipeg. It's the same geography, right? Yeah.
And I sang higher.
Right, yeah, that might be it. That might be it for sure. Yeah, because typically you have a fairly low voice, right? I mean, when you're singing,
and I play electric guitar.
That also adds to it. Yeah, I think, and not to compare it too much to Crazy Horse, but I think what I've always liked about the Crazy Horse stuff that Neil Young does is that it's usually based around like a really simple thing musically going on, and then it opens it up to do whatever. And it's kind of like if you wanted to have a 5-minute guitar solo there, where you're playing the same note 600 times, you could, or you could just cut it off and keep it as a tight, concise song. And I kind of feel like these songs on the album have that openness to them, where you don't really know. I mean, a folk song, start, middle, end, nice tight package. This is kind of like, it feels more, not in a jazz way, but more open, you know what I mean, for something else to happen. Yeah, so I don't know. That's what I liked about those tracks.
No, I think that's bang on. And something I wanted to do was just to write songs that have simpleness to them, and I played them on UMFM today just by myself with an acoustic guitar, and they are like that. They're concise and ended up, I wasn't jamming with myself.
Right. That would be cool to hear.
But live it'll be very different with the full band.
Yeah, that's cool. So being in Ontario, have you rehearsed with this band yet, or is it just kind of last minute?
It's the band from the album.
Okay, so they know the songs. Yeah. And, so that helps, right?
Yeah, and I do think that those songs actually help with that too. Like having the simple songs and just leaving most of the time on stage open to whatever the musicians want to bring.
So they can just get the basics down and then just go from there,
Exactly.
That's cool. What are you planning to do? I'm assuming these are local musicians in Winnipeg.
Yep.
What are you doing when you go back to Ontario?
I have no idea yet. That's only a month away, and I haven't even broached that in my own mind.
Okay. You're here for a month?
No, the shows are
the shows are a month away. Okay, yeah.
So I guess the answer is when I get home, I'm going to look for musicians.
Right.
And if I don't find them, I'll just play the songs by myself.
Sure.
losing his rhythm, losing our isms. How many days until now? Walking human, stuck in a room with a perfect ray of sundown. A long arm embrace. Come back is different, solid or sifted, love or other way.
Does that, I mean, when you're playing with the band, not necessarily on those songs we were talking about, but does it change the kind of makeup of the song? Obviously it changes with you have more people playing, but do you have to reinterpret how you're kind of structuring the song to suit a band versus just yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I think that people's personality and the way they play certainly influences the song, and that's something that hopefully there are rehearsals before the show, and you can you can kind of get an arrangement or a vague arrangement of what's going to sound good. Like if it sounds great to extend the songs, then do it, but if it doesn't, then you'll have to act as director and be like, okay, we're going to just play this by the
just as it is on the record,
the album or whatever.
Yeah. Because I always wondered how Chuck Berry did that. I mean, rest in peace or whatever, but he used to get, from what I understand, different bands every single night, and he would just be whatever local people showed up and kind of knew the songs. I can't imagine that. Like, it just
traditional blues thing to
just show up, and then they're like, okay, you guys play this in E. Like, it's crazy. I can't imagine half of those must have sounded terrible.
Oh,
just because you got amateur guys like, hey, you got a guitar, cool, we'll get Chuck to come, you got $100 in the guitar, let's do it. Yeah. I don't know how you can do that, but I mean, I guess you have the benefit of just being able to, and he could have too, I suppose, but just go out by yourself if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And that helps, I guess, for playing shows. I mean, obviously, like you said, Ontario is more close to go from show to show.
Yeah.
But having your life situation now, with the kid and everything, the fact that you can just go out on your own means you can do it with less planning. You don't have to organize some massive tour. You can just be like, okay, I'm going up for the afternoon to the next town over,
Yeah.
and then come back, right?
Exactly.
Without needing to get everyone involved, get people time off work for musicians and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that, but
No, that is a very nice thing about.
it's like a
being
perk,
down there.
right? Yeah.
It's like it's certainly an ease of scheduling and stuff like that. And there are a lot of places to play, and I'm just kind of learning them now.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Realizing
that makes
that,
sense.
I'm not from there, and it's a whole new
Yeah.
world. Really, once you get past Marathon or wherever, you're
Right.
you're in a different part of the world. Like Western Canada is very connected to, like the cities are connected to each other.
Sure.
But as soon as you get past the Lake Superior, it's kind of a different part of the
I think
world,
it must be because the
feels like.
distance, right? The distance has got to have a lot to do with it. Because even Calgary and Edmonton, they're not really that close. I mean, they are compared
Yeah.
to Winnipeg and like, Regina or something. But still, yeah, it's like there's city, massive amount of territory, city, and I
Yeah.
guess when you get east, it's just city.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
the cultures, yeah. How do you feel like you sound Winnipeg-y in that environment? Like, is there something different? I mean, a lot of people play folk music all across Canada, obviously, and I'm sure you share a lot of influences with some of the people you're playing shows with out there.
Yeah.
But is there something uniquely Manitoba about your sound that you kind of hear when you're hearing Ontario artists, or vice versa?
I bet there is. I don't think that's a question that I could answer.
Right,
I
right.
think it would have to be somebody maybe from Ontario seeing me play and seeing me play beside Ontario
Sure.
artists and stuff like that. But I certainly feel like there are sounds in Winnipeg that people are a little more attracted to, like Garnet amps.
Right.
Is
yeah.
a good.
Because it's local.
It's local and
Yeah.
it's like grimy and there's just a sound there, like a clarity and a dirtiness.
Yeah, for sure.
At the same time, like you can hear what the guitar sounds like. And
But it still has that
just
edge to it, eh? Yeah.
amazing amps, and I feel like that's a pretty typical Winnipeg sound.
Sure, yeah. And there's probably an equivalent in whatever Ontario town of whatever amp the local guy made there, right?
Yeah,
Which has-
exactly.
That's cool. Do you, like, now that you've been out of Winnipeg for a year or so, do you still feel connected to Winnipeg's music scene? Like, I mean, obviously you spend a ton of time in the local music scene, but are you still sort of like longing for the Winnipeg connectivity of the scene, or have you found something else to replace it?
I would not say I've found something else to replace it. It's very possible that there are places in Ontario that have that kind of scene, but
I'm sure there are, yeah.
I also think that Winnipeg is pretty special that way. Like, it's really part of the culture for people to go out and see music.
Yeah.
And that being said, like, Hamilton has that too.
Sure,
Hamilton
sure.
is a city a lot like Winnipeg, very working class, very like play music
Yeah.
in your basement and go out and play shows in dirty bars and like
Yeah.
and community clubs and stuff like that. I don't feel like KW has as much of that. And I think part of the thing with Southern Ontario is you have the option to bounce around.
Right.
The cities are so close that if you want to be part of a music scene, you can just move to Hamilton,
Sure.
like Guelph or Peterborough, like all places where there's tons of great music and probably a slightly lower cost of living, although that's disappearing in all of Southern Ontario.
Yeah. I think it's disappearing everywhere.
It's disappearing everywhere, exactly.
Well, I guess it's the same. I guess the opposite here is that like Winnipeg is sort of the place, right? I mean, there's obviously scenes in Brandon and Portage
Yeah.
and Selkirk and Niverville and stuff, but most of those guys and girls end up here.
Yeah.
They play out their little scene locally, and then they come to Winnipeg. Whereas when you have more options, obviously,
Yeah.
you're more mobile, right?
And I mean, Toronto is like that. Like, Toronto has a great music scene. And you can play every night in Toronto, but it's so expensive to live in
Yeah.
Toronto.
Oh yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that it is a very different thing. Like, here, people can play music for fun more often.
Yeah. And you can still have a mortgage and a family and a day
Yeah.
job and do it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not really that much of an option these days when you're paying $2 million for a small house.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I can't imagine
Yeah.
how people do that. They just don't, I guess. I guess they just rent forever and then.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a lot of big cities are like that, I suppose. But,
Or a lot of people are moving up, like, past Kingston or Sudbury or...
and just commuting?
No, just moving
Just
up
not
there.
going. Yeah.
And moving where it's cheaper, and I think there's a pretty big exodus of artists from expensive places.
Makes
That's always
sense.
kind of been the thing.
I'm sure Vancouver's got the same thing going on. It probably has for a while now because
Yeah.
those houses are crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people who've had to leave Vancouver too.
I know people who've left Vancouver for Toronto, and it seems like that's not really. You're not really accomplishing much. Like it's
True.
yeah. It's either get worse weather and still expensive housing.
I throw my arms up and to the side. But I get tired after a while. Not like Tamarock. I'd like to live straight and true. I'd like you to love me the way you do. The way you do, Tamarock. It's Tamarock I burn. With birch bark and a red bird. Fiery fingers holding snow. Changing colors like some people I know. It's Tamarock I burn. With newspaper and a lighter, I can do you wrong. The way that I keep on wind dancing. I walk to see you. I walk to see you. I walk to see you. I walk to see you.
I think we may have addressed this a little bit last time I talked to you, which was a year and a bit ago, maybe, because you played some of the songs from the album live when we did that interview.
Yeah.
And is there a overall theme to the record? I mean, I know that like it's just clearly referencing certain locations and environment and everything, but like lyrically, is there a theme to the record, or is it just sort of a collection of songs that came about at this time?
I guess it is a collection of songs, but there are themes that I feel like in hindsight I've noticed.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is... And even just choosing the songs to go on the album, I think that would have been informed by which songs went together, and then it ended up creating a little bit more of a theme, I guess you'd call it. I mean, all of the songs take place out of cities. Some
Okay.
of them kind of enter cities and mention them and in the environments of cities, but all of them take place in Canada in pretty rural
Okay.
environments, woodlands and stuff like that. So that's, I mean, environmentally, that's a theme, I guess,
Okay.
of where it takes place.
What is the appeal of that for you? Because that's not really new for your songwriting, is it?
No, I guess it's not. And just not new for me in general.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I've always
Right.
liked to be in places like that. That's probably why I chose to intentionally go to these places more, so I could be influenced and kind of observe more of the things in these places
Right.
that I like, in order to maybe record them someday, or maybe like take that energy
Okay.
and make it into an output of my own at some point, or let it, however you want to say it, like
Yeah,
let
yeah.
it disseminate through my body and then out through the sound waves.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. But it's funny because the places you're describing now and in the songs and everything, it almost seems like, I know a lot of people get inspiration from rural and kind of wide open settings, but it seems like there's more stories in the city, right? I mean, it's like you're sort of going from the amount of inspiration of just because there's so much going on in the city, it seems like there's more to draw from, but you're finding the opposite.
Yeah, I just did an interview with the Herald.
Okay.
And Danielle.
The Herald here? Like
yeah.
Okay, right on, yeah.
And and Danielle asked me if I intentionally chose to isolate myself.
Okay. Well, that's kind of what I was getting at, I guess, yeah.
And I thought that was it's a very apt question, but I've never seen it as isolating myself.
Right.
And I think that kind of answers your question, is that I actually think there's way more going on in places like, just a woodland somewhere.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, like when you think about it, there's tons going on. There's like, moss is growing or whatever. And I think because humans can talk and communicate, and we're making all these great things in cities, it's very easy to look at them and be pretty in awe of all these things.
Yeah.
And our relationships. But I think part of what I wanted to do was go and build on the relationships that I had with things like moss and trees. I mean,
Okay.
It sounds pretty
a little
hippie
cosmic, yeah.
Yeah, a little cosmic,
Yeah.
but essentially that just means going out and being in it and observing.
Sure.
And
So you're basically like someone who's going to take wildlife notes or draw a painting of a scene, but you're just doing it through music.
yeah, and just to feel like the energy in spaces, whether it's like the sound of trees or the sound of like a lake or something.
Sure, yeah.
like that.
Or animals or whatever, yeah,
Animals,
yeah.
And letting yourself be influenced by that. And
Do you think that sort of influence is better suited to folk music than maybe something else? I mean, just because of the simplicity and kind of stripped downness of acoustic guitar and singing, like, or do you think would it work if you were in a punk band? Could you be in a punk band and go to
this is a very
the
good
woodlands
question.
and see if you could get the same inspiration? And then how would that? Because I think folk is tied to that, right? It's not kind of unusual for a folk artist to be in a photo, for example, sitting in the woods, strumming a guitar, right?
It's very typical.
Do you think they inspire each other, or do you think it's just that's like, I don't know? It's
Two of the songs that were most out there on the album were the two like very electric songs,
Okay.
like Walking Human and Rock and Sand.
Yeah.
And I think those were the most influenced by spaces far from people. Those
So it's not
were two
necessarily
trips
just
that
the-
I did
yeah.
way far from places where I was like out by myself
Mm-hmm.
and like a day's paddle or
Okay.
a few days paddle from
Civilization
or something.
Yeah. Cool.
And so that was like electric guitar. So the ones you were kind of
Yeah.
describing more
Yeah.
as Crazy Horse, but there is like folk sensibilities in those
Sure.
too. And
Sure.
the punk.
I mean, it's a
ideas,
random
No, that's a very good one, because punk to me is such a.
It's so urban, right?
It's so urban and it's so politically charged.
Yeah.
And
But can you
Like,
get that charge from nature? Like,
can you get
I don't know.
political charges from trees?
I kind of want to tell a punk band to go in the woods for a couple weeks and then come back with an album and see what it sounds like.
Yeah, in a way, like I was having a discussion with Kyle, who did the artwork.
Yeah. That's cool
And-
artwork, actually.
Yeah, I was really lucky to work with him on it, and we actually did some trips together for
Oh, cool.
this album. Like,
Okay,
went
that helps,
canoeing
to
and-
connect the two. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was he mentioned that oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
Canoe trips, art guy. Punk rock.
You may have to edit this.
Oh no, I'm not editing shit. I'll put a song here, if I remember.
Punk rock. Oh, it's gone.
It's okay. Well, the politics of the trees.
Politics of the trees. That was it. He was saying that when he goes in to paint,
Yeah.
and goes into the woods and like a wooded area, like, you know, he can feel the energy there, and that's kind of what he's painting, is his own experience of the energy.
Right.
And that at the best times he can, you know, you can kind of hear the trees communicating, and like,
right.
you know, there's like, I've heard on
I guess however you interpret
that there's like, you know, a mycelial network underground connecting the trees. So all the trees are actually physically connected,
right,
sending each other information and nutrients and all of this stuff.
Sure, yeah.
So they are communicating in that way, and if you can kind of feel that and sense it as a person, then it kind of gives you a relationship with those, and you can be part of that conversation in a way. But he mentioned that, like, one of the things that trees would be feeling is probably mourning for a lot of the, like, clear cuts and whatever, the not taking care of woodlands.
So the trees want to fight the man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, that's...
The trees are
some punk rock there.
Yeah. The trees are the disenfranchised youth of the forest.
Exactly.
Maybe not youth, but they're old, but disenfranchised seniors of the forest. There you go. Yeah. Okay, works.
There's trees growing up in suburbs.
Like, totally, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's right, yeah. Getting influenced by the same stuff, getting mad about the same stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, if you think about it.
Trees and people.
It's there.
Yeah. We're one and the same. Cosmic. So yeah, no, that's cool. It's just, because it's interesting, because folk always seems to be that genre, right? Or country maybe, but it's always acoustic, right?
Country especially, yeah. I mean, country is country, like, it's out in the country.
Yeah,
that's like,
or even like, you know, traditional music, like traditional Irish music, for example. That's, you always see a dude on a rock with the wind blowing in his hair, playing a little, you know.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's weird that those are so associated. Country especially, right? You're on a farm, you're on a ranch, you're, you know, sitting in the middle of a field that some guy's plowed. Like, you know, you're on a horse.
Yeah.
You're not like, you know, in a parking lot beside a movie theater in the mall.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but we are in a car in a parking lot
in a city,
in a movie theater beside the mall.
Exactly.
So that's why I thought that.
Saw you before you woke. The creek, the clear creek, leaving the lake, where it was possible to see a temperature, where your dream had run in desperation, your sleep was maudlin. You casted one incipient belief after another, splashing through Canada. Smart, you think, and you notice a life underground. Might be crazy to love in such complexity. In your dream, you drew your body over dam after dam. Scrape the crust off an idol till it's bloody, incise with Swiss steel. Don't cauterize, watch for color. And legs, the marks of a forest scored my skin. Marks of refusals. Further down, dense vegetation rallied through my lungs, and I scuttled to the side of the trail, reading a sign screwed to an oak tree. A boundary sign. The language was blue on white on metal, and hinted at a calendar year. I moved through anyway. Now, when I think of futures, I try to imagine the actions of forests, objects of a generation being the futures we have always acted in. This story, this boundary, being one of many. Your dream finds a job. You work nights, mornings too. The creek is cold, but your legs never get so. Break off. Spend as much as you can on words. Throw dirt over. Water.
Do you sing differently on this record? I feel like you sing differently than you did on the Crooked Brothers records. I don't know if that's differently in the sense that you sound. I don't want to say you sound older because you are older, but you sound you sound more grizzled, and not in a bad way, and not in the way that Matt with the Crooked Brothers used to do a really gruff voice. Right? It's not like that, but you sound more old manish in a good way.
I am becoming more of an old man,
right?
And
I don't know how to explain it other than you sound more old manish, but you say your voice seems to be more weathered, I guess. Is that?
I mean, it probably is, I guess. I do feel like I can push myself further than I could before. Even just singing in a band. I think that being in the Crooked Brothers was really great for singing. Like, we just sang a lot. And before that, a lot of the bands I was in, I play instruments more than sing.
Yeah.
And
or you just be the one guy singing, and then there'd be no one else kind of do the harmonies and stuff with you, right? So
yeah. And going busking, like learning to sing loud. Generally, I'm a pretty quiet person.
Yeah.
And having to learn that to like project so that people come and give you the 30 cents or whatever
they have in their pocket. Yeah.
Was really good for that.
Well, yeah, I think you're the quietest of the three in the Crooked Brothers. Like your songs are definitely a little bit more subdued.
Yeah.
Right. Matt's are obviously very high energy, and Darwin's are a little bit maybe in the middle, maybe. But yeah, yours were kind of the more.
Yeah, I think I'd describe Darwin's as the highest energy.
Maybe, yeah. I'm just thinking of Matt's vocals more so. His vocals are more kind of commanding, right?
He does have a lot of energy in his vocals.
Yeah,
that's true.
But no, I think Darwin's songs maybe, yeah.
Oh yeah, that is a good delineation.
Yeah, you got the three kind of levels, right? I don't know. You just sound. Maybe it's that you are by yourself, and I've heard you so much with that band lately. Like, within the past few years.
There is an element of just like, the band isn't. Well, there was a band there, but the Crooked Brothers aren't there anymore. So, you
have to take center stage. Yeah,
exactly. Which is fun and terrifying also.
Yeah. But, well, because you've been able to rely on them as kind of backing up and not doing the whole. You're kind of the main guy now, right? With the songwriting and everything. Before it was all split up three ways.
Exactly.
So you got to come up with 10 songs versus 3 or whatever on the record. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. So if people in Winnipeg want to hear the record, I mean, obviously the best thing they should do is probably go to the show, I would imagine, right?
Yep.
What are the details about the show again?
Show is on Friday, November 9th at the West End Cultural Center. Doors are at 7:15. Show is at 8. Hannah starts it off, and then Leaf Rapids, and then me.
Okay.
I think tickets are 20 in advance or something.
Okay. And then if people can't make the show, or they're hearing this after the show's already happened, how do they find your music? What do they do?
That's a good question. I've been sending out vinyls by mail, and
Okay.
it's so expensive to
Oh, the
mail
shipping?
vinyl.
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
$20 to mail.
I don't
vinyl,
buy records
which is
online
crazy.
because I always see stuff. Oh, this looks like a great deal. This album I wanted to get, it's only $15, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, but it costs $35 to mail it. So forget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So mailing is tough. So if honestly, if you're in like Southern Ontario or Manitoba,
Track you down, basically.
just track me down
Yeah.
and buy an album from me in person. I'm gonna leave a bunch of albums here, Into the Music,
Yep.
which is also Music Trader now.
It is. Yeah. They're
And-
same name.
Yeah,
They're both into the music now, but yeah.
and McNally will have them.
Yeah. Cool.
So I'll make sure that there's lots of vinyl in Winnipeg that I leave.
Cool. And then for the weird youth people who listen to everything on the internet, it's all up there? Can they get it from all of those
Yeah,
providers?
it'll be on all the things.
Okay. Is it officially not released until Friday? Like, is Friday the go day, or is it already available?
November 21st is officially the
Oh,
release.
okay.
But I think I'm going to put it up on the Spotify thing.
So this is just the Winnipeg release?
Soon,
because
yeah.
you're here.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and I figured Winnipeg would get it first.
That's good. I'm glad. Glad we're getting it first.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to find out more about where you're playing shows, just hear, what's going on, what's the best thing to do? Website?
Yeah, jessiemadis.com.
Okay, and then you're on all the social media stuff too?
Yes.
Okay.
For better or for worse.
Right. They can get. I mean, we arranged this through social media, so it obviously works, right?
That's
But
true.
yeah, cool. And okay, well, if people want to hear more episodes of this show, including the multiple appearances Jesse's made in the past, I think you've been on like 5 shows now or something. Because you did one at the very beginning with me and Rob and John.
Yep.
And then you did one with John
Yeah.
when I wasn't there with the guy from
Japan,
Mahogany Frog.
Japan themed one.
And then you did one.
Wow, I wish I knew about Buffalo Daughter when I did that Japan episode. Do you know about that band?
I've heard the name. I don't think I. Is it good?
Man, play some Buffalo
I'll
Daughter.
look it up. And then you were on last year, and I think you might have been on one time in between there too.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think I was.
I think you were too, yeah. So yeah, I mean, anyway, archives, Jesse's all over it. Your brother's all over it too. There's a lot of people who have played in your bands are all over it, have been on the show a million times. So it's kind of, my favorite thing about it is whenever I interview someone, thinking of all the connections on past episodes, and you got a ton, just because you've played in bands with so many people here, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, go there, witchpolice.com. Tune in on Sunday nights at midnight on YOMFM to hear past episodes of the show. So by the time this airs, the CD release party will have been long over, and Jesse's already back in Ontario, probably months ago.
Yeah.
But you can find it online. You can find it hopefully at those stores, and you should pick it up.
Definitely. I just thought of something.
What did you think of?
You originally started this podcast and website as a archive and kind of database of Winnipeg music history.
I did. Sort of. Yeah.
And I'd just like to point out that at this point, I feel like if you go into the podcast archive and look through, just thinking about even you interviewing me,
Yeah.
it's created a history,
Yeah. Yeah.
a Winnipeg music history.
Right, because there's songs on every episode.
Yeah.
And since we switched the format over to just being songs by the guest, there's years of interviews and music by local artists. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
That's cool.
Can't stop, won't stop.
A new season descending. Fight the law and the law will win. If history gives us any hint, they will draw a hard line. Draw a hard line. I draw a line to where I grow. Steady what soil to to seed and what to sow. It's what they say goes, not what they know, and they will draw a hard line. They'll draw a hard line. Not a new weight shoulder in. There's an old millstone, and arms are unburdened. They can carry a load. Montana, CFIA. What did you see the day that they came? It seemed arbitrary, it seemed insane, oh, how they would draw a hard line. Draw